Kapoor, President, Jet Headquarter, Asia. One more participant in the inaugural session, Mr. Ted Farid, is a little delayed. Moment he comes, he will join us over here. So welcome you all. We start with the inaugural session. And the theme for this conference is GABA, the growth enabler. We need not emphasize on this theme. It has been felt, realized across the globe. In fact, in NBA slogan is, no plane, no gain. As in India, the GABA started growing after the fiscal reforms were carried out in 91. We saw the effect of it in 2000. We started growing and the demand kept increasing. But it has been a tough journey thereafter because of some misconceptions about the role of this industry in the GDP of the country. Over the years, the government has now realized to a large extent that this industry is as much necessary to the country as is the scheduled airlines. To that extent, in 2012, the first study which was carried out by Ico on GABA growth potential in India, BAOA was part of it. Incidentally, we were formed just about a year before that study began, in which DGCA and MOCA officials were there along with the BAOA. So 2012, this study started and we were formed in 2011. We were part of it. This study had predicted growth of more than 10% in the initial 10 years and then going to about 7% in the subsequent 10 years. And it had predicted more than 4,000 aircraft of GABA by 2035. We are not anywhere near that target, and there are reasons for it. In 2016, followed by this report, we had raised this issue about this report repeatedly. And 2016, in the NCAP, the National Civil Aviation Policy came, in which we again participated. And it had looked at the possibility of GABA growth by giving some incentives in the regional connectivity. The realization that regional connectivity is very important as India grows economically. In that, the issue was that the way it started regional connectivity in India, it has been a mixed experience. As a result of that, it has been the effort of government all along to support it without much success. There was a question asked in Parliament also, out of about 880 odd routes started, only less than 40% were successful. Well, we need to look at the reasons for this and what is basically not allowing the GABA industry to come to the level of growth which the potential exists in this country. Basically, there were two main issues which were reflected in the NCAP. One was the affordability of air connectivity. It should be affordable. And second was infrastructure for small aircraft, which was lacking in terms of availability of MRO, in parking lots and all. So we were associated with the follow-up action. It was not the follow-up action which you expect from any national civil aviation policy, but there was some follow-up action. And one of the things which we followed up from 2016 onwards was infrastructure for GABA industry. In that, we that time closely interacted with the DIAL, Delhi International Airport, which was where they first conceived the first FBO in India. The DIAL FBO, which now has finally come up as a GABA special terminal at Indira Gandhi International Airport at Delhi. We have with us today Mr. Pradeep Panicker, who has been associated with the development of DIAL from the beginning, And we very closely interacted with him when this GABA terminal was being developed. Thereafter, about 3 years back, he has now shifted and he is the CEO of Hyderabad International Airport. We would like him to come on the stage and share his experiences of how they came up and what were the difficulties they faced while coming out of GABA terminal, how the utility part, how they have looked into the affordability part, and how those experiences or lessons learned from DIAL have been now being gainfully used for development at HIAL and other airport which GMR is developing across India. Over to you, Pradeep, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Group Captain Bali, Rohit, Sunny, and Captain Shivkumar, sorry. And good afternoon to all of you. Group Captain actually caught me by surprise because he was telling me I had to talk about Hyderabad Airport and the development, and he now is actually asking me to think back what we did a few years back. Me and Rajesh both were involved in that project. So we took over the Delhi Airport, GMR Group, in 2006. If I am, 2004. 2006 is when we took over the airport. That time, the total, the airport was primarily concentrated on the northern side. The southern side of the airport was not yet developed. If you see where T3 sits today or the new runway, nothing was there. And there were a lot of development in Delhi had happened in a very haphazard manner because it just happened as time went along, time elapsed. Terminal 1B, I don't know how many of you had actually had an experience of using that terminal. That is a 1940 structure. And I had the privilege of actually going to the roof of that. When you go to the roof of that terminal, you would have seen that it's actually been expanded 16 times. Every time something happens, they keep expanding the terminal. That was how a terminal actually came through at that juncture. Possibly we had not even thought that our aviation would grow to that extent that it will need such a tremendous infrastructure. So when we took over the airport, it was expected that we will change everything and anything because private sector comes in with a magic wand and everything changes in no time. It wasn't so easy. So even to deck up, the Terminal 1B, which was actually a very old airport, we were trying to make it look fresh. We were thinking in terms of putting in new toilets, changing some of the walls. When we were trying to remove a wall, we realized the building could come down if we removed the wall. So there were so many such instances which we recollect and remember during those days we had to deal with. The other thing which happened was that in the general aviation space, the total number of aircrafts in Delhi airport were close to 100. And they were parked literally anywhere and everywhere. We didn't have so many parking bays, so it was not actually in the parking bay. All of them would say that we are in the hangar, and you go into the hangar, you would see in a small hangar, you would see about close to 10 aircraft somehow cuddled together. If you were to go through the norms and all, that would not have permitted any of those things to be there. So that is the other thing, and we had about 4 distinct hangars which are there, and they were where almost all the aircrafts were there. So it was perhaps not a very happy situation to be in. So first things first, though Captain Bali said that the first thing which comes to mind is commercial aviation because most people are traveling through that and we needed to create terminals. So we were busy creating Terminal 3 and also Terminal 1D, which came in later, before Terminal 1A also was demolished. So 1D and Terminal 3 took precedence, and at the same time, we were already in the drawing board and just saying, how do we actually cater to the demand for the general aviation? Because at that juncture, we also privy to the report which Captain Bali talked of, which indicated a significant growth in general aviation. And we did not want to be caught napping. So we started planning for the business aviation terminal. We identified certain locations. We thought, can we do something here? There were so many, in a operating airport which is got so many constraints with respect to, there is the defense forces also in the airport, they have their establishment, they wouldn't like something to come very near them. So we had identified a location very near the Aero City for development initially. That we had to dispense with because it had complications. Then we looked at something near Terminal 1D itself. That also went with challenges because the Terminal 1D, the apron had to be ripped apart because it didn't have fueling facilities, and we had to expand Terminal 1D. Then we looked at the current location, which is finally adjacent to the Terminal 3. So that's where finally we zeroed in, and in fact, by the time the first stone was laid, I was already out of Hyderabad and I had come in, and Ashish continued with the work, and he was responsible for completing that FBO terminal. We had identified two parties through concession, through bids, and those two people, in fact, I think one of them went on to complete the terminal, and it's come up in a good way and it's operating well. In the interim, what we did was we actually converted one of our CIP lounge into a facility where the private aircraft operators also could use the facility for the lounge. That is what Delhi had such a requirement. Delhi had close to 20-25 movements a day in the business aviation, but that's not the case for Hyderabad. Today, Hyderabad, both the airports put together, there are hardly 10 movements. So naturally, there is no commercial sense in putting in money for creating an FBO right now. We'll have to see as it evolves, but we are seized of the matter, and as part of the Hyderabad airport, what we are planning to do is we would be setting up a lounge, a CIP lounge. For people who are aware or know the Hyderabad airport, the existing terminal which is there, which is basically a 12 million capacity terminal. And just before the COVID year, that is in 2019, we handled close to 21 million passengers. So even there, we had to manage with a different model and how do we efficiently utilize the infrastructure. In order to cater to the growing demand, we had created two interim facilities, an interim international departure terminal and an interim domestic arrival terminal. The interim international departure terminal is being now converted partly into a lounge, which will be ready possibly in a year's time, which will be open to the CIPs who want to even board the aircraft, even commercial aircraft to that facility, and also to the FBAO operators who want to actually utilize that for boarding the aircraft. So that is what we are planning to do. And if the demand does grow, because we don't have scarcity of land, we have adequate amount of space, we can always create a new facility for the general aviation. With respect to infrastructure in the air side, we have already geared up significantly. Almost 93 parking stands are coming in this expansion totally. And the terminal itself is going to be significantly large, so it can handle close to 40 million passengers. So that's where we are with respect to Hyderabad airport development. Upon saturation, this airport will go all the way up to 100 million passengers. We have just right now, just like in Delhi, we are currently utilizing the southern part of the airport. The northern part of the airport is still to be utilized. 5,500 acres of land is perhaps one of the biggest airport land available in India. So we don't have a significant constraint with respect to kind of infrastructure we need to develop. So we are in a position to develop that, and we would develop that as and when the demand comes. There's no point creating infrastructure well ahead of demand and letting it rot. So that's where I come from. So having said that, congratulations, and I know the business aviation has come a big way. And like Rohit and Bali have been old friends. And we used to have regular fights in Delhi when I was the chief commercial officer in Delhi. And it was a very how do I say, a poignant relationship with people. They would storm the table and walk out, and next day they would again come back and have coffee. So that was the way we evolved and we dealt with the situation. And when Captain Bali asked me whether I would take this opportunity to come and today meet you and speak to you. I wanted to catch up with old friends, let me be honest. So that's the reason I turned up here. So I'm very thankful for the invite, and all the best for your sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep. And this is how it is, the friendship develops when you fight in a meaningful way and walk out in a meaningful way. So it has been quite meaningful fights all the way. Just one thing which comes to my mind is that there will be time when the traffic will grow and there will be need to have more automatic mechanism in place. Are we looking at online parking allotments, like you want to go to a place from A to B, and such facilities are being planned in GMR airports? that you don't have to, I mean, online parking, availability and all is known. Are we looking at those?
Parking is available, that's no problem.
In future, I'm talking. Are we planning?
We can always look at it.
Okay. So this is because parking is still little issue in Delhi airport because as of today, about 80% of the business aircraft fly between Delhi and Bombay. So that's that is something we have to plan in advance. I now move on to the other aspect of GABA, which is that the alarming, reduction in the inventory of helicopters in India. From somewhere around 270 3 years back, we are close to about 160 today. This issue is being repeatedly discussed in the ministry, and they are looking at ways and means to increase utilization of this aircraft, which is used in so many different ways, so much of flexibility. And I feel privileged to inform you that Airbus Helicopters India is working closely with the government through their dynamic India boss, Sunil Guglani ji, who is here with us, to share his plans for optimal growth of helicopters inventory in India, either through, educating through helicopter acceleration cell, which is formed in the ministry, or through bringing some other financially viable model which helps the industry to grow, especially the helicopter industry. Over to Sunil ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Group Captain Bali ji. I mean, I don't know if I'll be sharing any plans or concrete ideas, because I think that's for all of us to decide together, and we don't have all the answers at Airbus. But I would certainly like to raise 3 issues, during my address. So, first of all, a good afternoon to all my esteemed co-speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually quite nice to be here with all of you physically, because honestly, like over the last few months and year, I think I personally had an overdose of G-Meets and Zoom calls. So it's very nice to see that we are all here together. And that too in a place like Hyderabad, which is emerging as the new hotspot for general aviation and business aviation. Now, the GABA community covers both fixed wings and helicopters. And it is an important edifice of the aviation ecosystem in any country. This is the industry that connects people and change agents. And all this is done with safety, reliability, agility, so that time saved is equal to more opportunities created. This is the community, all of us, who provide the go-to solution for people who need options or solutions which a commercial service like an airline cannot provide because of the rigidity in their networks and schedules. And obviously, they cannot provide the privacy that some of our customers seek. So ladies and gentlemen, the point here is that the industry that we are in is an essential thread of the aviation fabric in this country. So that's a great position to be in. But this great power also comes with great responsibility. It is essential that we achieve the highest levels of safety, reliability, and aim for efficiencies. And this can happen only if we cooperate closely, and that's why initiatives like this and the work what BAOA is doing is really commendable, and that we scrupulously follow all the regulations. And most importantly, we keep our engagement with the government, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of wrinkles and there are a lot of hurdles, and here we need to work with the government to iron those out. So over the next few minutes, I will actually list out 3 of these areas that I want us to ponder over, and maybe during the course of the day also deliberate on and see if we can have any concrete suggestions that we can come out with and have a plan, as you said, Baliji, in the beginning. So one of these wrinkles that requires to be ironed out, which I think has immense potential for the growth of our industry, is fractional ownership. The concept of fractional ownership is not alien to us, to this gathering. But it is, or it seems to be an alien concept to government bodies and those who control taxation and depreciation benefits in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Fractional ownership has the potential to revolutionize this industry like no other policy decision can do. It can bring about a transformation within businesses and people who can all of a sudden own a share of an aircraft. And of course, it means immense growth opportunities for us, aviation management opportunities, and also develop investment in infrastructure. Now, fortunately, over the last few months, I can see that the government is getting warmed up to this idea, and there have been interactions to sort of push this policy. And efforts are now underway, also thanks to, in part, to the work that we are doing with the government, to lay down a policy framework around fractional ownership, which gives clarity as far as taxation and depreciation benefits are concerned regards to fractional ownership. And we hope that the government comes out with a policy, and the inputs, at least, that we are given, which we are collating from the industry, will find a reflection in that policy. There is one other box that a policy on fractional ownership can help us tick. And to my mind, that's a big one. And it's the point around perception. We are all aware of this luxury and elitist tag that is attached to business jets. Because the public perception is that, these shiny jets crisscrossing the skies are basically just for, a super privileged minority. And, these are projects in vanity. Well, I disagree with that. And I think we in this audience will disagree because we realize the benefits of GABA. So I think fractional ownership will democratize this access to GABA and lower that perception bar and make people feel more accessible, make the government feel that, yes, this is actually a tool for nation building. That's what we all should aim to get to, and I think fractional ownership would help us in that direction. The second point I want to touch upon is what we call the apply to fly timeline. The first point is that we need regulations which liberate, not constrain. And to give you an example, if today someone decides to enter into GABA and initiates the paperwork to import an aircraft and start operations, it takes 9 months to do it. 9 months, ladies and gentlemen. And if you break this process down, you will see that it takes almost 3 months for the security clearance and 6 months for the DGCA clearances to come through. And all this happens all the while when our government's mantra is minimum government, maximum governance. So I think something needs to change so that it holds true for our sector as well. And I personally see no reason why this 9-month timeline cannot be brought down to, say, 4 months. And I'm not even saying 2 months or 3 months that we see in other developed economies around the world, like the US or France or Australia. We're not even saying let's try to do as they do. But we should make a conscious effort to bring this down. And this is something that I can tell you, we are making an effort. And I want all of us to sort of make this effort whenever we engage with the government and those stakeholders who can help us do that. The last point I'd like to touch upon is taxation, because here I think there's a glaring anomaly in how the private category operators are treated versus the NSOP. So presently, anyone who wants to purchase an aircraft in the private category has to cough up 28% of IGST. By the way, which is the same level of taxation that is applicable to what we call the sin category, which includes gambling and cigarettes. So we have the same level of taxation on GABA for a private operator. Whereas for an NSOP, it's, I think, 5%. And on top of that, on top of the 28% that a private operator needs to cough up, there is a 3% additional tax, the compensation tax. So that's 31% tax for a private category operator. I think there is a huge, if we talk about sort of really liberating and providing an impetus to the private sector to grow here in this field, then we need to sort of rationalize this taxation. And finally, I think the UDAN scheme, the regional connectivity scheme, we have to find ways to harness opportunities in this scheme to boost GA and BA in this country. Because the GA segment has been a vital medium worldwide to provide connectivity in remote areas. And there are schemes similar to UDAN in the US and Australia. Utilizing small aircraft, the GA segment has been able to serve the transportation needs of communities in these far-flung areas and has allowed operators to ramp up their business. And we should utilize this scheme also for helicopters in areas where the inherent design fundamentals of a helicopter, which make it really sort of an agile platform, we should induct helicopters in those areas and embed them in this UDAN scheme. And to my mind, you know, the states that immediately come to mind, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, we were just talking about Leh and Ladakh just a few minutes ago, the 7 sister states in the Northeast. So I think there are lots of parts of this country, and that's the beauty of our country as well. I mean, we've got so much diversity in terms of the geographical spread that we need to sort of use assets like helicopters to bring connectivity to those areas. And there I think UDAN and the new scheme that is coming up for small aircraft, the small aircraft scheme, should be leveraged. So to conclude, I can sense new opportunities in this area and new prospects for all of us. I feel that there are undercurrents of optimism. There are lots of challenges, but the fact that we are here, so many of us are here, is because I think we all feel that there is an underlying business case for general aviation and business aviation in this country. Pushing for regulatory reforms is going to be a perpetual task, and there I think the work that BAOA is doing and what we are all doing should carry on, and we are on the right track. And lastly, you know, I mean, we are in the 75th year of our independence, and we are celebrating what we call Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. While I was thinking about, you know, what I will say here, there were these words of our Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji who said, "Sahi samay hai, yahi samay hai." So I think that's the maxim that we should all follow. And with that, on that note, I would like to say thank you once again. Looking forward to a very passionate and, you know, a fruitful discussion today, and wish you all a good air show as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sunny. You brought up some issues like fraction ownership. We are very closely working with the government, and we are getting help from your officers also there to move quickly in that direction. In fact, in today's session, we are going to discuss it at length. We have some expert on fraction ownership available. In the second session, we are going to discuss it. As far as perception is concerned, I think this perception issue is across the globe. Even in, I was reading somewhere today, even in Canada, they have increased taxes even on some turboprop aircraft. Even they, so this issue of perception is something we are going to fight for a long time. But we can always find some other ways to rationalize this sin category of taxes. We have already suggested to government that keep us in the middle category. If you are going to have 2 categories in future, 7 and 15, keep the private in 15 with the input tax credit available, ITC. There are a lot of discussions going on. Fortunately for us, I believe that the present minister is very dynamic, very forward-looking, and he is working on it. He knows the challenges, but we are working very closely with the ministry to rationalize those things. So we are sure, but the last thing you talk about was the regulations. I think in the case of regulation, the main issue has always been, in DGCA, somehow the perception has always been to, we are member of Ico, and we must follow what is there in Ico. They come out with some new regulations to be effected 4 years from now or 3 years from now. We will copy paste them and make a car on that. That approach has been most detrimental to growth of general business aviation, because as far as large aircraft are concerned, I don't think they have much choice. They have to follow international norms, because ICO is basically, rules are meant for international flying. For domestic flying, where the nations are focused on developing the domestic industry in a affordable, in a cost-effective manner, you look at the rules, how those ICO rules are to be applied in India or in their own country. So we need to adopt that approach like what FA is adopting. Any ICO rules comes, they study, they get stakeholder opinion, and they file the differences based on what their perception is without compromising with safety requirement, how we will allow our own industry, domestic flying to grow. And that is where now I have to bring in our DGCA expert, Deputy CFOI, to talk about that perception. Of course, he is from FSD and with a lot of experience in flying from Air Force and now in DGCA, even in civil. We would like to know from you how we are working on that concept. Of course, we are having now very regular meeting with the DGCA and Ministry, where every subject is discussed. But there are some issues on which DGCA forms a little different view. So that is where there is a gap in understanding each other's perception. And through this regular meeting, we are trying to narrow that gap and come to a common understanding of what is good for the industry and what is good for safety of the aircraft. So over to you for your views on that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, gentlemen on the stage and ladies and gentlemen. Actually, it's been a very short notice for me to come and speak, and some of the topics which Group Captain Bali spoke about is beyond my pay grade. However, I'll try and see what I can address and speak to you about. Looking forward, a major change that has come about in DGCA, which all of you are aware, has been the EGCA, which has been implemented in stages. It's a new system. It means a change for all of us, both in the field for you, as well as for us who are behind the desks in the headquarters. There are challenges in terms of, teething problems which take place in the system. A lot of things cannot be loaded or uploaded. It takes time, and the response from the TCS at times is a little slow. But I think there are challenges to which we are working very hard. You must understand that even in the DGCA, we have people who are being trained, and we are no experts in this system, but we are slowly learning. And with time, I'm sure we will catch up and come up to speed. And on the other hand, what we find is when we come to the operators, the small business operators coming to us for requests, one major challenge that we find is a lot of them come with inadequate manpower. Inadequate and, if I may put it a little crudely, ill-trained manpower. So what happens is a lot of onus then comes on us to try and sort of rationalize what the requests are, what the problem areas are, and that takes time. So that is perceived as if we are the stumbling block. We do not want to do work. That's how the perception is in the field from what we get to hear, the feedback that comes in. But that is not so, because there are, as a governing body, as a regulator, one needs to keep safety in mind. And keeping this, we need to look at what the relevant regulations are and to make sure that whatever is being quoted or whatever clearances that are being given or any new startup or any new setup which is being done follows what is already in the system. And if there is a change required, as Sir was saying, probably in the concept of fractional ownership as going forward, then there has to be some changes in the aircraft rules and in other ministries as such. So this requires a little lead time, because this is something done at a much higher level. And this is not done at our level, so it will be incorrect on my part to comment on it. But going forward, what we can assure you is, at least from the FSD in the DGCA, we are definitely geared to try and see how we can help the industry move forward. How we can assist you in trying to get your clearances at the earliest, trying to see if there is something that we can do differently in order to help the industry grow. And Sir was mentioning the Ico regulations. Now, the Ico regulations which are there are, as and when they are released, it is studied very closely at the in the DGCA at the headquarters level, and there are a lot of inputs are taken It is not that we just decide that, okay, this is the input, this is the regulation which has come, and we just sort of implement it verbatim. It is debated at length, and a lot of it is, at the end of it, we feel that the industry does need to catch up. So in areas that needs some sort of a leeway, something is thought of and is given, but the fear is always that this could lead to some sort of an incident or an accident which is definitely unpalatable, unacceptable. So keeping that in view, in most cases, we try and see if we can stick to what is already existing and what has already been quoted. And if there is a change required, as Sir says, filing of differences, a lot of thought process goes in, and we do an SRA, a safety review, before we look at even making a small change. So that's the challenge that is there at the level of the government at which I'm working in. So be rest assured that from our end, there will always be an effort, an attempt to try and help you all out. We just expect you to reach out with, at the correct time, and try and help us in terms of giving us the correct information. The right information with the right staff, trained in the correct manner, and you can be assured that things will definitely move very fast. Thank you. I've got this later on in which I will discuss a little more of these issues that are being faced. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Captain Shivkumar. He will be in this first session, and there are surely going to be questions which we will try to address. The shortfall in trained manpower in GABA is an issue we recognize we need to address, and we all need to work very closely with DGCA in a forward-looking manner to sort out that problem. I just wanted to announce that we have among us now Mr. Ted Farid. He is most seasoned, most experienced, most respected GABA professional. May I, sir, request you to please come to the stage and join us on the stage. He has just arrived today only? Yeah. Just today morning only he arrived. We are privileged to have him among us. As we always learn from our seniors, you arrived just in time. So thank you so much. In fact, next is nothing is part of the agenda. You see among us today the most respected GABA professional, Mr. Ted Farid, and we have also with us on stage Mr. Rohit Kapoor. All of you know Mr. Rohit Kapoor. I have a more than 10-year-long association with him, and I can only tell you I did not know him, but somehow he thought that I was perhaps meeting some requirement to be part of BAOA, and as it was formed, and take this association forward under the guidance, his guidance, under the guidance of BAOA Governing Board. In my last 10 years plus with the BAOA, I have to admit that I always felt deep in my heart that we are today what we are because of Rohit Kapoor. It's very tough when you are elected president of an association, which is a commercial association, to balance between your own business interest and what is in the best interest of the industry. And that is where he was a perfect leader, as I say. I have had about 6 years with him as president the first 4 years, and after 4 years he said that he wanted to give chance to others. Then he came back on my request, and another 2 years we had with a gap of 2 years. I have learned a lot, and when recently I requested the governing board to consider expressing our gratitude to Rohit for what we had done for GAB industry in India, everyone unanimously and most enthusiastically agreed with the suggestion. So today, in this inaugural session, we take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude on behalf of BAOA Governing Board and all the industry stakeholders to Mr. Rohit Kapoor for giving BAOA a direction from the beginning and bringing us to where we are today. We will say with humility that we are one of the most respected organization because we work on totally on merit of the issue, and same way through him we have got represented in international forums also at International Business Area Council, where he was part of the governing board earlier. Right now, I think he has a greater role to play at international level. Now he's moved to Dubai as President President Asia of JET headquarters. And now I'll request Mr. Ted Farid on behalf of all of us to give a trophy for outstanding achievement to Mr. Rohit Kapoor as our gratitude, expressing our gratitude on behalf of BAOA and all the industry to him for what he has done for the industry in India. Thank you very much. Please, sir. I'll request all of you to please stand up and give a standing ovation. Rohit, you like to just reciprocate? Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. I love the music they played when they gave me the. That was fantastic. Nicely done. I'm actually deeply honored and very humbled to be here today and to be given this recognition. Thank you, Bali sir, and thank you all the members of the governing board, the entire industry, faculty. Special honor to have old friends and the chairman of JETHQ, Ted Farid, here to give me this trophy. It's a very rare honor. And I don't know what to say, actually. It's such an overwhelming kind of a moment at this time. And all I can say is, when we started BAOA in 2011, I was a young lad of 49 years old, and I completed 60 last month. So it's been a fairly long journey. One full decade of my life has gone into this. But I can tell you it's been a great journey. I mean, I remember the time when we first met and had a few meetings in the Delhi Flying Club in their conference room, and there were two erstwhile associations which were working at odds with each other, and it was a huge task to get them under the same roof and get them to reluctantly agree to give up their positions and merge it into one kind of an association. And I was honored to be actually picked as the first interim president till the time elections were held, and then obviously, I got elected and we continued with formidable support of a fantastic governing board all throughout. Some of the stalwarts are here. Mr. Harsh is here. I see him. He's been the treasurer forever and such a great job, always been there. Colonel Sanjeev Sethi, again, right from the beginning, from the first governing board. Sudhir is not here, the now president. He's been there. And of course, Rajan and Naresh and Pradeep and Julian, everybody has been there. All the support. So obviously, Group Captain Bali has been very kind to say such nice words, but I can tell you it couldn't have been possible without the support of all of you. Special word for Group Captain Bali. He joined, I think, in 2013? 2012, just a year year and a half after the association started, and obviously he's been there ever since. And at some stage, you know, the governing board and the president decided that we really don't need to be there day to day, because he was, you know, he kind of just took on the entire responsibility of representing this association and being the face of it. And he's done a fantastic job. I mean, I would correct him to say that we wouldn't be here today if it really wasn't for him. I honestly mean that. All these events, everything. I can tell you it's not an easy job, going to the ministry, going to DGCA, sitting across the table, trying to put your point across, waiting outside rooms. It's a very tough job. And he does it with such a smile on his face and so much of it. And I mean, I think the association has achieved a lot. Obviously, not everything. You can't always achieve everything. It's still work in progress. But I think what we've done, and I always say the biggest thing that BOA gave to this industry was the unified voice of what we do and what we represent and what we can do for the country. And I totally agree with what Sunny said earlier, is, you know, this is a nation-building industry, and it's time people start recognizing it. You know, it's been a perception battle for the last 10, 12 years to try and convince the authorities that, listen, we are trying to do something which is good for the country. It's not sin goods we deal with, like Sunny said. It is, these things add to the use of business aviation, adds to the economy, adds to the GDP, generates jobs, employment. You know, it allows business leaders to move freely with safety, security, allows them to grow their businesses the way they would like to grow it, and which all adds on to nation building. So I think I'm glad Deputy CFOI is there. He'll take the message back. I think the Joint Secretary couldn't be here due to the Parliament session. So it's something, I think everybody in this room should be the flag bearer of this message. You know, and one way I can say is my humble request to everybody who's here: support the BOA. You know, without your support, this industry is nothing. Today, I'm telling you, it's a very formidable voice in the industry. We've had several interactions, and Pradeep is right. We've sat across tables, we've argued with each other, and then we walked away and come back the next day and again argued with each other. Sometimes we've come to conclusions, sometimes we've not. But Pradeep knew that if there's an issue, who to call. Same way the ministry knows if there's an issue, who to call. So we are a very formidable voice, and we can become more formidable. I always feel that we can achieve much, much more if the industry supports us better. No association can be perfect. Everybody has their own issues, and it's difficult for an association to take up individual issues of everybody. What the association can do is give a voice to the common issues, and where there are individual issues, they can be individually addressed with Group Captain Bali, his assistants taken. Sometimes the issues are at odds with each other. There are issues of operators which do not actually, which are actually not what the ground handlers want, or which MROs want, right? Airport developers do not want. So somewhere we'll have to decide that these are common issues which are for the common good of the industry. So please step up, please support the industry, support BOA, take membership, come in as sponsors whenever they hold the event. I know they struggle for money. It's not been an easy ride. Within the limited resources, they do a great job of what they do. But what it needs is, it definitely needs much more of it, and nothing runs without the cash engine. So please come forward, please support, give them whatever is there. And thank you once again, everybody, for this rare honor. I'm truly humbled, I'm truly honored, and I hope I'm able to continue to assist and support in whichever way I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohit. They say leaders always say the right thing, and you said the right thing when you said that there is a long way to go still. We understand that there is a long way to go, but I'll only request, like he mentioned, in this journey ahead, we need support of everybody through more professional approach. It's sometimes embarrassing in DGCA also with us when they give examples of some not so professional, papers or actions taken by operators. So we all have to be very professional, have the right approach, don't have any shortcuts, and seek help of good professionals to put across any issue which we want DGCA to address or the ministry to address. If it is only through well-researched and knowledgeable papers that we can progress things further, not by any rhetorics. That's our experience. I also want to add that our president, elected president today is Mr. Sudhir Naik, Senior VP of Reliance. Unfortunately, due to COVID-related issues, he has been advised not to travel by air for at least a month, so he's not here. But when he asked me to convey his best wishes and his happiness over our decision to, express our gratitude to Rohit Kapoor. Thank you very much, all of you, for this support given to all of us. And we look forward to our second session now. With this, we conclude this session. Thank you.